Hello everyone, Professor Toybox here, and I'd like to welcome you back to my Prop Wash Junction toy box. I'm here with Nick Wild, and today we're going to work on adding a little finishing touch to my toy box. When you're flying around in here and you look at the skybox, you see the massive forest fire in the distance, and you see this all the time. So I thought it might be kind of fun to have some random fires pop up occasionally in my toy box that you have to put out. So we're going to go ahead and add that in, and this won't take too long, I don't think. But I'd like to be able to just kind of have some nice little things like that pop up unexpectedly when you're in here and you're playing your games and racing or doing whatever, and then all of a sudden, hey, there's a fire. And just a little surprise something to go and do. So we're going to go ahead and set one up over here on this farm. For this, we'll need a few Creativitoys. We'll need a couple of locators. We'll go ahead and make the fire about right here. Or about right there. I'd like to set up a target. And my idea is that basically, when you see the fire, you'll come over here and hit this target with a helicopter or jet guns, and then the target will explode and the explosion will put out the fire. So we've got our locators, we got our target. We'll need some effects generators, and those are right over here. And we're going to need 3 of these. Let's go ahead and stick them over here out of the way a little bit. I'll move these below the train when we're done. But for right now, the other thing we're going to need, because these effects generators only work if you're somewhat close to those locators when we hook this up. If you're on the other end of the toy box, you'll never see the fire and smoke. So in order to know that there's actually something going on, we're going to need a radar marker to help us find it. So we'll go ahead and drop that. And a text displayer to tell us that there's a problem. And we'll go ahead and hook that up. So the first effects generator will be for the flames. And I want those to be here. The second effects generator is going to be for the smoke. When I was playing with this earlier, I noticed the smoke from the flames isn't really that noticeable. So we'll go ahead and add some smoke to it and really make it noticeable. And the third effects generator will be for the explosion. And we'll put that right underneath the target that we're going to destroy. There we go. And for the radar marker, let's go ahead and set the properties for that. We'll set the beacon type to be a yellow arrow. That seems appropriate for fire. The location will be the locator that we're going to connect in a second. And right now all those things being off is fine. So we'll go ahead and set the locator to the fire's location. Right there. Okay, before we can hook the rest of that up, we need something to be able to start this fire. And my thinking is that I'd like it to just show up kind of randomly. So to do that, I'm going to put down a randomizer. And a repeater. And we'll come into the repeater properties and we'll set this to go, I can set this, probably I would want to set this every few minutes because I wouldn't want this going off very frequently. But in order to test this, we'll go ahead and leave it set at 5. Let's see. Oops, it's not letting me out. There we go. Okay. And now when the repeater goes off, we'll come over here to the randomizer and trigger that. The randomizer, as we've looked at before, has 10 different triggers. So I'm going to hook up one of these triggers to my effects generators and the fire and all of that. So whenever the repeater goes off, it has a 1 in 10 chance of actually kicking off this fire. Other times it'll trigger one of those other random triggers, which isn't going to be connected to anything, and nothing will happen. So this way the fire will show up every once in a while and not all of the time. For the properties, that's right, there's nothing I need to set there. So we'll go ahead and set it up on random trigger 1. We'll come over here to the first effects generator and we're going to play it looped. And we're going to go ahead and play some fire, and we'll do the smoky flames. And also on that same random trigger, when it goes off, we'll start the smoke, and we'll play that looped. Smoke plume. So that'll kick off a big smoke plume that we'll be able to see. Also, on that same random trigger, when it goes off, we want to turn on the radar marker so that we can find this. And I'd also like to display the text. So we'll come over here to the text displayer, and there's really, you're kind of limited on what you can choose here. But I did find one that should work okay under, I believe it's nouns. There's one that says smoke. It'd be nice to have something that says fire, but smoke should be sufficient to tell me that there's an issue. And there we go. So the repeater, when it kicks off, will invoke the randomizer, and whenever random signal 1 is triggered, that will start all of the fires and things. And we'll get that going. Now the other thing I would like to do, if this will let me, oh wait a minute, we'll do it from here. So when, this is the better place to do this, I think. So when the random trigger goes off, we want to go ahead and deactivate this repeater, because we've already have the fire, so we don't need to keep doing that. We want to just let this run until the player comes over and deals with it. Okay, so the fire is going, and now the only way to put it out is going to be to shoot this target. So we come in here, new logic connection. When it's broken or collected, which is basically a fancy way of saying it gets shot, we're going to come over here and play one time the explosion, and we'll do a huge explosion. And also, when it's broken or collected, we'll go ahead and turn off the flames. So we'll stop looping the effects. And ditto for the smoke. Stop looping those effects. And we'll turn off the radar marker. And lastly, we'll go ahead and turn the repeater back on. Okay, so that takes care of that. Now, when this gets triggered again, a second time, we'll want to make sure that we turn this target back on. So we'll go ahead and reset it at that point. And that should be just about everything we need. The last thing we're going to need to do is just to make sure this repeater gets turned on when we enter the toy box. And so for that, we're going to need a trigger area. And I'm going to put this down here on the starting location when we enter the toy box the very first time, which is all the way back here at the airport. So let's see, we'll need the trigger area, which is right here. We'll put it down on top of that. So now the player, when he comes into the toy box and walks out of that trigger area, by player any, will come and start the repeater going. La 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 la. The one downside to having a very large toy box is it takes a long time to get from one end to the other. Unless you're flying a jet, of course. Okay, so we enter the toy box, we turn that on. So that will just start repeating until we actually trigger the fire. So now we'll go ahead and test this. And we'll come all the way back here. Okay, so we start off on the pad, we materialize inside the toy box, and then we start walking off, and there it triggered it automatically. Smoke, it says. So, oh, we got a fire. Let's go ahead and hop in and get over there and do something about it. Whoops, those gates are going. Thought I had those deactivated from the jet race. So now as we get closer, you can start to see the fire. And that's looking pretty impressive, actually. So then to go ahead and put the fire out, go ahead and destroy this target. And there you go, fire's out. So there you have a fire and a way to put it out, and then that will trigger every so often. One thing I want to do with this little text creator is set the properties on this, because that text, when it showed up and said smoke, wasn't very noticeable. So if we change this to a banner, that should be much more noticeable. And there we are. Of course, I can set up a couple of other fire locations around the toy box and connect those to random trigger 2 and 3, 4, and so on. And that way, when the random triggers occur, the fire isn't always in the same spot. So that might be kind of nice to have fires pop up in different places around the toy box at random intervals. So I hope you've enjoyed this little video. Subscribe to my channel to see what we're going to do next. And you can visit my blog for build tips and logic diagrams for everything that we've done. And we'll see you next time.